taking a few moments to just settle. Taking a few moments to settle. Just have a sense of how you're feeling today. So obviously it's Friday morning. We've had a long and busy week. So the enthusiasm around the lying down makes me think maybe people are a little bit tired. So perhaps just rest your hands on the front of your body and just gather your attention into your breathing for perhaps 2, 3, 4 cycles of breath. Sorry, just let me know if it gets too breezy there. Okay. So just feeling the movement of the breath in your body. And obviously, as we move through the class, we come back to these sort of quiet times where we gather our attention into our breathing. And maybe as we progress, through the class, our breathing sort of softens and settles more. So I suppose what I'm saying is if your breathing feels a little bit rushed or tight or held at the moment, don't worry. We'll come on to some easy movements lying down and then we'll come back to our breath. So what you're going to do first of all is, if your legs are long, bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. Hi Kate, we're just lying down. So yeah, so if your legs are long, bend your knees, stand your feet on the floor. And then fold your right knee into your chest. So folding the right knee into your chest, just perhaps have a cycle of breath with your knee folded in towards you. And then from here, you're going to lengthen that leg up towards the ceiling. And you can hold on to your leg by interlinking your fingers around the back of your thigh. You could give your leg a little shake out. So you might not obviously want to hold it if you're doing that. And then when you are holding it, you could do a little bit pointing your heel, pointing your toes, or circling your ankle. So really, what I'd like you to do is whatever feels nice with your leg up, holding on to it in some way. That's it. Good. Good. And then let that knee bend, and that's it. Just fold that right knee back into your chest again. That's it. So right knee folded into your chest. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave, and then lengthen your left leg out on the floor. I think some of you might have your left leg long already. Lengthen your left leg out on the floor. Give that leg a little roll. So keep the right knee folded into your chest. Hang on, Kate. Go back to the first leg folded into your chest. That's it. Hi, Hannah. We're just starting lying down. We've got the right knee folded into the chest when you're ready. The right knee folded into the chest. Let the left leg roll or bounce on the floor until you can just then let it go. And then again, you're going to lengthen your right leg back up towards the ceiling. So a second time, you can do similar movements. You can be shaking that leg, pointing the toes, pointing the heel, circling the ankle. You could, this time if you liked, let your leg rock a little bit from side to side in your hip joint. So we were holding on to our leg somehow. It could be interlinking your fingers around the back of your thigh. Yes, it Hannah. So just find a comfortable way you can hold on to your leg. Good. And whenever you've had enough of that leg being up, just bring it onto the floor and lie with both legs long for a moment. And then at that point, you can just feel the length of yourself. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave. And then once more, bend both knees and stand both feet on the floor. And then fold your left knee into your chest. So we're going to do the same things on the other side. So maybe a cycle of breath with the knee folded in towards you. And then taking that leg up towards the ceiling. So keep the right knee bent for the moment. That's it. So right knee bent, right foot standing on the floor, left leg lengthening towards the ceiling. Shaking the leg out perhaps, and then maybe holding around the back of your leg, interlinking your fingers around the back of your thigh, circling your ankle. Yes, Helena, it's probably quite good for your healing process to have your leg up there. So yeah, any little movements that feel nice once you've taken this leg up. And when you're ready to bring the leg back down, just fold that left knee back into your chest again. And then you're going to lengthen your right leg out on the floor. And then here again, give yourself a little bit of time to roll your right leg on the floor. So the left knee's folded into your chest. Your right leg is long. You can roll your right leg. You can bounce your knee. Good. Very nice. Lovely. And then whenever you're ready, a second time, you're going to take your left leg up towards the ceiling. And again, just sort of see what would you like to do. It could be the shaking the leg. It could be that side to side movement we could do a little bit. So we support our legs somehow with our hands. And we see what it's like to let our leg rock a little bit to the right and to the left. So if you haven't taken your left leg up to the ceiling, Sarah, and you want to, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's quite good to get a bit lost. Very nice. And then when you've had enough time with that leg up, just bring it down onto the floor and let both legs. And let the breath come in. Let both legs be long for a moment. And then if you're happier with your knees bent and your feet standing on the floor, then come on to that. Okay, so what you're going to do now is come to, still lying down, bend both knees and stand your feet on the floor. That's it. And then you can come to letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. So I know that we often like to start with this one. So see how it feels to come to this movement now. So today we're going to be focusing quite a lot around the pelvis, the hip joints, the legs. And also have this little exploration about the our pelvis, keeping our pelvis fixed, allowing our pelvis to move. Okay, so what you're going to do now is pause in the centre. And you're going to come now to just letting the right knee tilt out to the side. And then back to the centre. So just do this a few times. Let the right knee come out to the side. And then it comes back towards the centre. It can even come over a little bit towards the left leg, but don't worry too much about that. That's it. So you've got both feet standing on the floor, and you've got your right knee tipping out to the side. And what you're noticing now is how the pelvis is going to be moving less. It might be that the pelvis, does shift a little bit towards the right as your knee falls out to the side. Tracy, if you don't have enough room for the next movement, I'll have to turn you around. Let's see. What I want you to do now is keep on with that movement of the knee coming out to the side, but help it by pressing into your left foot and letting the left side of your pelvis come away from the floor. So as your right knee starts to go out to the side, start to press into your left foot and let the left side of the pelvis come off the floor. Good. Keep sending your left knee forwards over your footprint. That's it, rather than letting the left knee come over to the right. Yeah, so hopefully this helps you do. Does this feel okay? It's weird. It was weird. Okay. Don't lift the whole of the pelvis. So let the pelvis tilt. Okay. So as your right knee comes to the right, you press into the left foot. So that your pelvis tilts to the right. But if it feels unstable, you don't have to do too much. So you're sort of combining that foot pressing with the knee coming out to the side. If it's comfortable for you, you could let your knee come all the way down to the side. If it doesn't quite reach the floor, you can put a cushion under it. So let me know if you want a cushion, and just stay there for a couple of breaths. Sorry, do you want a cushion under your knee? Would be good. Tracy, does anyone else want a cushion under there? Me too. Yes. Tracy? Or you're just going to move in and out of it? Yeah. This one's a bit bigger. Good, and just have a couple of breaths there. And then whenever you've had enough, you can come back to the centre and just either lengthen your legs out or fold your knees into your chest, whichever you prefer. And that's it. Good. And just a couple of quiet breaths, and then we'll do the same movements on the other side. So when you're ready, you can bend your knees, you can bring your feet to stand on the floor. So start just with the movement of the left knee tilting out to the side without pressing into the right foot to start with. So just that movement of how does it feel to let your right knee tilt out to the side. Notice what happens with the pelvis. Sorry, left. Left knee out to the side. A few times. And then whenever you're probably wanting to add in the foot pressing movement. So when you're ready, you can start to press into your right foot as your left knee starts to move out to the side. So allowing your pelvis to tilt now more towards the left to help that movement of the left knee out to the side. Okay, sorry, I was just a bit. There you go. No, I think it's probably for you sort of, anxiety around your pelvis. Good. And you can carry on just doing this movement and repeating this movement, or if you wanted to stay for a couple of breaths with your knee coming to the side, if you want to put a cushion under your knee, if it doesn't quite reach the floor, you can do that, or you can also just stay moving. Yeah, that's nice. So Tracy, how's your lower back? Is it still, still iffy? And then again, as we did on the other side, whenever you've had enough, you're going to either lengthen your legs out or fold your knees into your chest, or a little bit of both. So in a moment, we're going to come off the floor, off our backs. But perhaps before we do that, just wherever you're comfortable lying, see, you could do a little bit of rocking, knees folded into your chest, you could lengthen your legs out. Perhaps just return to your breath for a couple of cycles of breath and just see how it feels now to come back to feeling the flow of your breath through your body, in whatever position. So sometimes, often it just takes a few simple movements and our breathing can start to feel a bit more settled, a bit more fluidity there. Everyone looks very happy lying down. So we're not coming into anything dramatic yet. We're going to be making our way, maybe making your way onto your side, and we're coming over into Cobbler Pose. So we're going to do a bit of Cobbler Pose, a bit of Pinwheel, and Pigeon. I don't feel too alarming at this point. I might have some lights, which is slightly brightening up. Maybe what I'll do is put those lights in the corner. Doesn't feel quite as blue as it did. Does anyone else want to come up? Cobbler Pose. If you face the long edge of your mat, would you like to? I can do that. It's fine. The equipment being used on your blanket. So yes, Cobbler Pose, and just to sort of again arrive in Cobbler Pose, you could be leaning back on your hands. You could. It's always you could do a little bit bouncing your knees. Always a popular one, or a little bit of rocking. We won't stay in this Cobbler Pose too long. We might do a little bit more. Another breath or two, and there's always, I think for me, always this first Cobbler Pose, probably leaning back on my arms that looks nice, so is the most happy. And then from here, we're going to move on into Pinwheel. So you're going to let one knee come on top of the other knee, and you're going to slide your top leg back. And you're going to do a little bit of circling here, so sort of circling and settling. And if you like, you could do this version where we give ourselves a hug and we let our head hang. So this is nice for the shoulders. So if you're feeling a bit creaky, that's it, Hannah. If you're feeling a bit, make sure one arm's sort of complete, that's it. Good, completely underneath. If you're feeling a bit creaky, across the shoulders, into the back of the neck, and it's quite nice to do this option, looking down. So Donna, make sure you've got one arm completely on top. That's it, yeah. Very nice, good. Circling, and then it's up to you. If you're enjoying the circling, that looks very nice, Helen, through your upper back. If you're enjoying the circling, you could stay with this a bit longer. But when you're ready, you can also move into your pinwheel forward bend. So turning towards the knee that's going out to the side, holding the weight of your body down over that leg. And then pinwheel gives us, the pinwheel forward bend gives us this opportunity just to sort of touch base with our breathing again, and to feel the flow of a cycle or two of breath somewhere in our body, and also to let the shoulders soften. And so as much as possible, just sort of letting ourselves settle and soften. And it's so individual how long or how not long you want to stay here. So if you're happy in pinwheel and you want to stay a bit longer, that's fine. And I'm trying to encourage you to do this in lots of things today, to choose for yourself. But when you're ready to come out, walk your hands in towards you. We are going into pigeon, so you probably want to stay in pinwheel. We're going to then let this knee, the knee we will fold it over, just let it slide back a little bit on the mat. So I always think about lining up my thigh with the long edge of the mat. And then just bring your weight over that leg again. So you can release your back leg and lengthen it back. And I was thinking, when I was doing this yesterday, what I often do is I tend to tuck my toes under in pigeon. I don't keep them tucked under, but I use that toe tucked under to really sort of lengthen the back leg away, so that I open up through the front of my hip joint. So that can be quite nice to help settle. Remember, in pigeon, you can be lopsided. So if your front knee, that's it, Tracy, if your front knee doesn't like the pressure of pigeon, stay off to the side. If it's, if you're comfortable bringing your pelvis level, then that's great. Yes, any little rocking movements you want to do. And then you've got different hand positions. So Helen, you might find this challenging with the other leg, with your injured leg forwards. So you might want to do lunge instead on the other side. Now you could be low in pigeon with your forehead on your hands. You could be on your elbows, or you could also be coming up onto your hands. So see if you can have another breath. So I'm just going to have a look at pelvises. Remember, you can keep rocking a little bit. Try and keep the shoulders nice and soft. Good. So we are doing pigeon a little bit sort of early on. That's it. Yes, if you've had enough and you want to come out, you're going to roll out onto your front leg here. And we're going to lengthen out both legs. So we're going to come and sit in our sort of wide sitting. However, it doesn't have to be massively wide. You're right there, Tracy. You've got room to lengthen your legs. So you might well want to lean back onto your arms and your hands at this point. Yeah, you could roll your legs, you could bounce your knees. What else could we do? There's lots of things we could do here. So all the time you could be leaning back. Some of you I know like to come forwards in this, so it really depends how you're feeling. A little bit of swaying, or sort of shifting your weight side to side. You're right there.
I've done it for a long time.
Okay, so where are you feeling it? Okay, so in which case I would say sort of lean back. Is it better if you lean back?
It's better if I don't do it.
If you don't do it. Don't do it when that's not so wide then. Yeah. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is just awful, just there, go less wide. See if you can find a place where it's a bit more tolerable. Good. Okay. We'll come from here back into Cobbler Pose, and we'll another little visit to this. I think it's good just to do short little visits to it. We'll come back to that after we've done Pinwheel and Pigeon on the other side. So yeah, when you come back to Cobbler Pose, any little sort of rocking movements you want to do. Tracy, I don't know whether you want to swing round on your mat for Pinwheel so you're facing the long edge of your mat. There's these side lengthening ones we can do reach. And then let's move into side 2 of the pinwheel. So let's let the knee come on top of the knee and slide that top leg back and come to a bit of circling. So again, remember, if you, doesn't matter which arm you have on top, but if you quite liked this one where we can work on our shoulders and our hips at the same time. And so again, Helen, if you know, if this is the injured leg that we're folding over, you might not want to do that. You might want to stay upright, and you might want to do lunge rather than pigeon. But you know, with that leg forward. So when you're ready, you can come into your pinwheel forward bend. So turn towards that leg, folding over it. See how it feels. So again, can we settle down? So this feeling of giving the weight down, so we've turned towards that knee that's going out to the side, we've folded the weight of our body down over that leg. We're letting the breath come in, we're letting the breath leave. So this opportunity just to come to some quiet breathing for a moment. And then again, up to you. If you want to stay with pinwheel a little bit longer, you can do. If you're ready to move on into pigeon, which you told me you're there already, so you might find you want to go back into pinwheel. So yes, if you're wanting to move into pigeon, I'm sure we're all thrilled at that prospect. Coming up a bit, moving your knee back. So you're lining up your thigh with the long edge of your mat. You don't have to do that. I just always find that's just a helpful sort of reference. And then again, if you found it helpful, that sort of tucking your back toe under so you can reach your back leg away from you. And feel that you're opening through the front of your hip joints. And then we can settle down through our arms and our elbows. So we bring the head to the back of the hands. Side to side rocking or up and down rocking. When I say up and down, I mean along the length of your mat. I don't mean up to the ceiling, down to the floor. Time, see if you can keep the shoulders soft and relaxed. So because there's a lot going on in the pelvis in pigeon, we can lose our sort of focus on our shoulders. And just, the shoulders are staying easy. Obviously, if you want to do a little bit of pigeon of coming onto your hands, more upright. Sometimes it's good to explore these different options in pigeon because maybe today there's something that's particularly helpful. Is it helpful to be up on your hands or on your elbows? Or let the shoulders fall away. Whenever you're ready to come out of pigeon, we're going to be rolling out of pigeon, coming back to having our legs long and they're not quite so wide, or anyone else. So you might find that the second time is not so challenging. Just a little bit of roll in the legs. I started bouncing. Again, if this is something you particularly like, you could do a little bit of bringing your hands forwards, not just a bit of turning from side to side. So in a moment from here, we're going to come into dog pose and a forward bend and up into standing. But I want you to take some time in dog pose, as long as it doesn't feel hideous. Then, we've done quite a lot of movements. We've done quite a lot to release the back of the legs, which means dog pose might be a little bit easier than sometimes. So again, if you want to stay with your legs wide, you can stay. When you're ready, dog pose, staying in dog for several breaths, forward bend, up into stand. Just gather up some of these cushions. So be right with your cushion set, Sarah.
Yeah.
Good, that's it. So when you're ready, settling there, that's nice, Tracy. If you come onto hands and knees and you feel compelled to do some cat or tail wagging, then by all means do that. Otherwise, coming into dog and just, yeah, how does it feel to be in dog? And of course, you know, we've done some things to the legs. That doesn't mean that the backs of the legs won't feel tight. So you might want to do a bit of bending one knee, bending the other, bending both. Yeah, really nice dog pose. Sorry, staying too long. And if it's better for you to come down onto your knees and then go through a squat to a forward bend, you can do that. So yeah, so from dog pose, it's going to be coming into a forward bend, having a few breaths in your forward bend. So if you come into your forward bend, you might feel that you want to bend your knees, Tracy, and rest your elbows on the thighs. So if your lower back needs a little bit of additional support, if your lower back feels fine, you can let your arms and your head hang down to the ground. And perhaps have a little look at your feet in your forward bend, check that your toes are long. And then from here, as we exhale, we're going to sink into the heel and long up. Needs to be a moment for a drink of water. So yeah, having a drink of water if you want, and then we're going to do our sort of loose, easy swinging twist. So we're going to be doing a few balancing things and standing. So again, Helen, you may need to take it easy on that side. Tracy, if you need more room to swing your arms, you can move back. Which is also on the step back. Disappeared somewhere upstairs. Good. Okay, that's nice. Just swinging the arms. Having a sense of your body in movement. And actually what you could feel now is just feel how your pelvis is part of the movement and is moving from side to side. And in standing, we're going to explore some movements where the pelvis stays a bit more fixed and where we let the pelvis move. Okay. I thought we would start by settling in standing and then coming into tree pose, which is really familiar to us. And you can choose quite a sort of simple, quiet tree pose. So we're not trying to push ourselves at this point. So look down at your feet and then settle them and then stop looking at your feet. Either find a point in front of you to focus your gaze on or close your eyes and come to a little bit of swaying from side to side. And just feel your weight coming over one leg and foot and then the other. And in a moment, you're going to choose which leg you're going to stand on when we come into a tree pose. Now, if you would like to do like a mini tree pose with your foot on your ankle, you could start by bringing your hands into prayer pose. And then you can shift your weight onto your chosen leg and bring your foot onto your ankle. And here, just remember that we're trying to keep our pelvis fixed so it points forwards. If you wanted to bring your foot further up your thigh, then you need to catch your ankle. And then the second thing we do is hands in prayer pose. But just try to choose a sort of, what would I say, an enjoyable, soothing, familiar tree pose. Thumbs can rest on the breastbone and our hands are in Anjali Mudra. You might want to keep your hands at your breastbone. Okay, we're doing tree pose, just something sort of familiar and ideally quiet. We can float the arms up if we like. You can see how it feels to, we have our branches, our tree branches. Might make us feel a little bit more wobbly. And we can also come back to hands at the heart. Possible another breath or two. come down, have a little shake out. So I always think tree pose, it's just this, it's this very familiar pose. It doesn't mean it's necessarily easy, but it's familiar, and there's something perhaps calming about that familiarity. So we'll come on to the second side. So again, if you're going to bring your foot onto your ankle, you could start with your hands in prayer pose, and that's quite settling in itself. On the ankle. You could also start with your foot on your ankle and then think, okay, I might try taking my foot a little bit higher, and then release your hands at that point. Try bringing your foot a little bit higher, but all the time just what's familiar, be reassured and soothed in tree pose. And there's also, I always think there's this lovely sense that the tree pose we're doing today has within it all the other tree poses we've done in our life up to this point. So this is a sense of continuity. And again, just make sure your shoulders are relaxed, quiet. You could gather the hands back to your heart. The breath come in, let the breath leave. And then come down a little bit of shape. Out, yes, and then come into a forward bend. So just give yourself a little bit, I always think it's just a little bit of time for your mind to quieten down when the head's near the floor. So feet a little distance apart, you can rest your elbows on your thighs, or you can release forwards. If you feel that you want some movement in your forward bend, you're always very welcome to swing your arms from side to side. But to see if you can give the weight of the head down to the ground. And so it's something I imagine maybe is sort of busyness or the focus of the balance, sort of, easing out of the top of my skull down into the ground. You just have that, a little bit of quiet time to empty the head. And you can have another breath or two in your forward bend, and then when you're ready, you can sink into your heels and roll up into standing. And both ways, sorry, so I'm going to put that towards you both times. So you're going to come back and start again with your feet a little distance apart, but have enough room on your mat that you can take a step forward. So we're going to work with a couple of, I suppose, little mini sequences, coming into a couple of balances from this position where we've got one foot stepped forwards. So the first thing we're going to do is that shifting our weight forwards and back. So this one I always find very calming. Feeling the feet on the floor, we can let everything sort of up here quieten down, dropping down into our footprints. And eventually you're going to settle your feet down and you're going to stop rocking. You're going to look down at your feet, and I'd like you at this point to see if both feet can point forwards. And we're going to try to keep our pelvis facing forwards. So bring your hands onto your pelvis for a moment. Just have this feeling of the pelvis, the legs, the feet, nothing is going to move, maybe, hopefully below the waist. And we can just swing our arms and turn our shoulders. It's going to feel quite artificial if we don't let our pelvis move. But that's our intention at this point, is not to move the pelvis, just to move from the waist up. And nice. And we're going to come into, from here, a balance where we're trying to keep our pelvis, we're going to be tilting forwards in a moment. We're trying to keep our pelvis level with the ground. So let's bring our hands into prayer pose and let's bend the front knee. And at this point, maybe just have this sense of your pelvis facing forwards. From here, we're going to bring our weight into our front foot, so into that bent front knee. Both knees could be bent for a moment. And then we're going to start to reach backwards with our back heel. And as we do so, we let our shoulders tip forwards in response. And one of the real challenges in this pose is try to feel that the pelvis stays level. So the back of the pelvis is level. Reaching into the back heel. And it's, you know, it's not the be all and end all. It's more like it's our focus for today. It's just trying to sense our pelvis and where our pelvis is. Also the back heel. The back heel is a good point of focus. Good. If you felt that you sort of tipped out a bit sooner than you wanted to, you could just briefly try again. So our starting point is that bent front knee and reaching back with the back. Ah. Yes, and what you're going to do once you've finished with the balance on that side is you're going to come into a forward bend. So come back to the stepped foot forward position. So the same foot stepping forwards, the one you just balanced on. Bending your front knee. Coming to rest on that bent front thigh. And then you can fold down if you like, releasing your head and your arms to the floor. That's it. And just have a couple of breaths there, letting your head go. So again, this feeling of can we sort of let our head empty of perhaps some of the focus and busyness of the balance. Breath come in, let the breath leave. And then sink into your heels, come back up into standing. You can give your legs a little shake out. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you know what you're doing on side two. I'm not sure that makes it easier or there's more anticipation and anxiety. So step the other foot forwards. Come to a little bit of rocking. That's it, forwards and up. Weight in the back foot onto the front heel. Weight in the front foot onto the ball of the back foot. Just keep going. Feeling the feet on the floor. So this is this really important preparation of dropping down into the feet. And then eventually we'll let both feet settle down. At this point, have a look at your feet, both feet pointing forwards. Hands onto the pelvis. And we'll try that little turn, that little sort of swinging movement of the arms where we're trying to keep our pelvis fixed, which maybe feels quite strange, quite unnatural. Well, we do this quite a lot, so maybe in yoga it doesn't feel strange. And then we're going to be coming into this is a variation of our warrior 3 balance, where hands in prayer pose, bending the front knee. So we're trying to keep our pelvis facing forwards, and then as we start to tilt forward, so you can come onto that bent front knee. So as you reach your heel back behind you, that's when you start to maybe tilt forwards. And we're just trying to sense, where is our pelvis? Is the back of our pelvis facing the ceiling? The front of our pelvis facing the floor? We're trying to feel good. Very nice. Yeah, it's quite helpful if your back heel hits the wall, Donna. You can send your heel to the wall. No, it's really very helpful. Sarah, you look like that might be happening to you as well. So if you think, oh, I want my back heel hitting the wall, you can always try that one more time. It's luck, isn't it? Because you've got to be the right distance. If you're too close to the wall, it's not going to be helpful. Good. Yes, that's it. If you're doing that again, that's great. If you're ready to come into your forward bend, you've got the foot you just balanced on stepped forwards, you're bending the front knee, you're folding forwards over that bent front leg. Yeah, so sometimes just that little bit of contact is very helpful, isn't it? Yeah. And I think it also then helps you sort of, again, just orientate yourself in space. Lovely. Good. A couple of breaths in your forward bend. That's very nice. Sink into your back heel if you can, a bit more Tracy. Up, that's it, yes. You can always rest your elbows on your front thigh. So it looks very nice, but we'll know about it. Okay. Sink into your heels and come back up into standing. Now we're going to do another balance in a moment, but first of all, we're going to come down through a forward bend and dog pose. And I want you to do your one-legged dog. So there's the one where your pelvis stays level and the one where you let your pelvis turn. Okay. So at the back of your mat, when you're ready, we could bring our hands into prayer pose. That might be quite nice. We can let a breath come in as we exhale. We can take our arms down and then up. Feel long and tall. Let the shoulders fall away from the ears. And then rolling down into a forward bend. So you can have a couple of breaths in your forward bend. And then you can be walking your hands on into dog pose. And just let yourself, let yourself arrive in dog for at least a couple of breaths before you start taking one leg off the ground. And sorry, if it feels too much for your wrist, you could always, is it okay? Yeah. Suggest you did more of a forward bend with your hands on the sofa. Yeah, so in your dog pose, you're going to see how does it feel to lift one leg, and just try and feel what's your pelvis doing. There's the variation where we can lift our leg and the back of our pelvis stays level, like the balance we just did or we attempted to keep the pelvis level. And there's also the variation where we roll, let the pelvis roll. So we let the pelvis turn to the side. And yes, you can bend the top knee. I like to reach into the top heel, but you know, whatever feels good. Just be aware, and you know, you don't need to stay too long on each side. That's it. Just can we feel the pelvis staying level? Can we feel the pelvis rolling? Yes, and using the wall again. It's quite good. Yeah, the wall is good for these as well. Whenever you've had enough, come down into child pose. Have a few quiet breaths. That looks popular. That's it, lovely Kate. So really reaching into that heel. Give yourself a little bit of time to settle in child, to feel the flow of your breath. Let the body settle and quieten. And then when you're ready, there's no rush. You can spend a bit longer in child pose if you like. We're going to go through dog and a forward bend, or Sarah, it's up to you. If you want to do a dog and then come down and do squatting, forward bend. Yeah, so dog, forward bend, back into standing. We're going to do one more standing balance. We're desperately enthusiastic about this prospect. So you can just think about the next thing, which is dog, and how dog might. We're not doing any sort of fancy things in dog. We're not taking our leg up, so dog might feel quite nice. Of course, you can put off the prospect of coming into standing, and one more balance for that. Good dog, forward bend. Making our way eventually back up into standing. And we're going to take a slightly quite different approach to this next balance. It's not one we've been doing loads of over the last, gosh, and a half. But, and this is, yeah, it's a different approach. So in standing, with your feet side by side, you're going to come back to stepping 1 foot forwards again. So, yeah, I'll bring this for this time. So step 1 foot forwards. And just again, come back to a bit of rocking forwards and back. So this is really familiar. This is what we just did a moment ago. And from this, then eventually we'll do the same thing of settling down. And this time we're going to turn towards our back leg and we're going to let our pelvis move. So do that a few times. You can just turn from the center towards your back leg and let your pelvis move. Now, if I start to do this, what I then want to do is let my back foot turn out a bit, yeah? So if the pelvis is turning to the side, maybe the back foot also wants to. So I'm just giving that as a possibility. So can we stay with our pelvis turned a bit to the side, it's comfortable, letting the front knee bend, and let the arms float up to shoulder height. So when I do this, I have this image, and I think it might come from Sarah from teacher Chloe, of being like a big sail. So you want to have this sense of your expansiveness of your body. And from here, we're going to start to bring our weight into our front foot. We're coming into half moon pose, but from this upright position. So can we start to tilt forwards, keeping this sort of width across our arms? and our chest, maybe all the way down, so our fingertip comes towards the floor. And you might feel very wobbly in this. So I've been playing around with this quite a lot over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, so if you're going anywhere, the sort of bottom arm is coming down towards the ground. So come up and we can try again. So it's perhaps quite good to try this a couple of times. So from this position, our pelvis is turned out to the side, our arms are wide. We're transferring our weight into our bent front leg, and that knee starts to straighten, and we're just tilting ourselves forwards. We're trying to keep the pelvis turned to the side, the arms wide, and maybe our finger comes down. Once your finger does come down, that's a good idea using the sofa. Yes, good idea using the wall. So, yes, the walls are very good friend. Good. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, so if you do have some wall space and you wanted to do this against the wall, you could do. Let's go on to trying the other side. Let's go on to try the other side. So come to stepping the other foot forward. So come back to our first bit. Step the other foot forwards. And so if this feels quite unfamiliar, it is a sort of different way into this pose. And when I've got less wobbly over the last few weeks of doing it. But the wobbles are part of it. So a little bit of shifting your weight forwards and back. And then settling your feet down. And a little bit of turning towards the back leg and letting your pelvis come with you. So this feeling, a bit like in that one-leg dog pose where we let our pelvis turn to the side. And then it's really up to you if your foot also wants to turn. So it's my knee that sort of tells me, actually, if my pelvis is turning to the side, then actually my knee is happier if my foot turns out. And that may or may not be the case for you. And then we can let the front knee bend. We can let the arms come wide. So just really have this feeling of this sort of expansive feeling through the body, which for me feels like this big sort of white sail. And then start to bring the weight onto the bent front. And then as we tilt forwards, trying to keep the pelvis and the front of the chest facing the side. Expandingly straightens but doesn't knot. Tilting on. Very nice. Good. Yes, and perhaps you try that. You might have a wobble or two. You can come back up. You can try again. Good. Okay, so that starting point, we've got our pelvis facing to the side. We've got our wide arms. We're just feeling expansive through our body. I suppose I think of this white sail because I like this feeling of being quite light here. Light and airy. Beautiful. Well done, everyone. Yes, it's forward bend time now, isn't it? And I was thinking, yes, you could do that sort of forward bend, or I was thinking a wide-legged forward bend, which when I was camping in the summer doing some yoga with a few friends there. This is what a couple of people said. I said, "What's your favourite pose?" And I was surprised how many people said wide forward bend. So it was very I wasn't surprised when someone else said after that happy baby. So that's not a surprise. Make sure if you are doing your wide forward bend that your feet are parallel at this point, not turned out, because that just helps protect the knees a little bit more. You could just be sort of quiet in your forward bend, or you could be bending one knee or walking your hands from side to side. Much as possible, this should just be a place where you can undo after all the balances, and again let any of that sort of focus or busyness in the head seep out into the floor. Quite near to lying down. I just wanted us to finish just sort of settling in standing before we come out of standing. So settling in standing, so coming, bring the feet a bit less wide. So settling with your feet a little distance apart. And I always find it helpful if I'm going to settle and gather into my breathing and standing to bring my hands on the front of my body. So it could be one hand on the belly, one hand on the chest. Could be hands on the low ribs or both hands on the belly. Perhaps you'd like to close your eyes. You might also like to sway a little bit from side to side. See what presents itself to you when you have the intention of settling the stand. A little bit of movement helps with the settling. And if you are swaying from side to side, maybe make the movement smaller and smaller until you can settle and gather your attention into your breathing and feel the movement of the breath in your body, wherever you feel it most clearly. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave, maybe another cycle or two of breath and standing. And then we're going to take this quiet focus on our breath into a forward bend, dog pose, child pose, or sorry, whatever works best. So from the back of your mat, just keep that quiet focus. So coming into your forward bend, and then again, sort of connecting with the flow of your breath. Seeing how it feels to have that sort of intention to be quiet in the forward bend. And then yes, when you're ready, you can move into dog pose. You can have that same intention in dog pose of focusing on the flow of the breath in the body. And of course, from dog pose into child pose, which seemed very popular earlier. Settling down to child pose quietly. Now, in from child pose, you are very welcome to have a few more breaths here. I'm going to suggest what the next movement is, just because some of you might be happier, because from child, we're going to be slithering forwards onto our belly. So some of you, I know, Kate, I'm thinking about particularly like lying on the belly. So if you, that's what where we're going to be coming to. Yeah, Helen, it might be more comfortable for your leg. From child, we're going to be coming onto our belly. And if you need, yes, exactly, Hilary, if you need a blanket or something, a body blanket under the front of your pelvis to make yourself more comfortable on your belly, you can. So perhaps rest one hand on top of the other in your forehead or your cheek on the back of your hands. It doesn't really matter, just comfortable position for your arms and your head. And give your pelvis a bit more wiggle. Can we wiggle the pelvis? And then can we settle with the breath? So wiggle the pelvis and then a few quiet breaths. The breath come in, feel the breath leave. And maybe here when we're lying on our belly, if we bring our attention into our back, that's where we can feel the movement of the breath more clearly. The back of the ribs, the back lungs. If you like, you could come to that movement where you bend your knees, you take the soles of your feet towards the ceiling, you tilt your feet to the right and to the left. If you don't like that one so much, come back and wiggle your pelvis a bit more. I always like this one on Zoom, seeing the feet waving from side to side. done a little bit of wiggling your pelvis or tilting your legs, you could just let yourself have another couple of quiet breaths on your belly. And from the belly, we're coming over onto the back. So if you're someone who's not so happy on your belly, you might want to move onto your back sooner. And if you're someone who's quite happy on the belly, you might want to have another few breaths there. So it's up to you. And yeah, you can keep your head where it is on your mat, or you can put your head up the other end of your mat. What's most important is you just so let yourselves arrive onto your back. And yeah, just arrive. Arrive and settle. And now I'm going to give you a few little suggestions for movement in a moment. But just let yourself arrive and settle on your back and see how you feel. There's lights on now, since we've got. I've got 3 suggestions, which I hope is enough to give you choice, but not too much to confuse you. And you might want to do one or all of these things. So one thing is happy baby. Another thing is bridge pose. So we've done a lot of forward bends. So when I was practicing some of this yesterday, I felt I wanted to open out a little bit in the front of my body. So bridge pose would be nice for that. And the third thing is to do a floor twist. So the one where you fold your knees into your chest, support your knees with one arm, take your knees out one side and then the other. So you could probably do all 3 things. You maybe don't want to rush through them, but yeah.
You say them again.
So happy baby, bridge pose, and a floor twist. So yeah. There's anything else? It's not handstand at this point. If anything else you feel drawn to doing, of course you can do that. So if you're doing happy baby, yeah, that's nice. There's all variations on what we do with our legs. This kind of happy baby is some sort of movement where the knees are folded into the chest, with the legs are coming up towards the ceiling, and we're rocking a bit. So the legs could be quite passive, or we could be reaching into one foot and then the other, and use that sort of reaching movement to rock us from side to side. And I suppose happy baby and bridge pose are very much a sort of, quite pair of poses. So yeah, that's quite nice, Kate, to do a bit of happy baby, come back to a bit more bridge. And obviously the happy baby does move you on into your floor twist. If you want to do that feel nice for your back, Tracy. That look really nice. Well, you look like you're almost a bit too friendly with the wall with this one. Like your head is jammed up against it. So. Yeah, because I think sometimes in bridge pose we move up a bit anyway. I don't want your head jammed against the wall. Good. So yes, I'll just remind you, it's happy baby, bridge pose, and the floor twist, which I haven't said much about. So if you were doing the floor twist, so I very much go into this these days from knees into my chest and then taking my knees up, no, my legs up to the ceiling, and then wrapping one arm around the back of my legs. And then the other arm comes onto the floor at shoulder height. And we take our legs down in the opposite direction to that outstretched arm. And then you can come into your floor twist for a couple of breaths, or you can stay there for quite some time. But enough to do that block. It looks rather insubstantial.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's get you a cushion. really worth bothering with, is it? Yes, so if anyone else is doing, yeah, that's nice, Sarah. So anyone else is doing the floor twist here and wants a cushion, you know. Yeah, so that, Kate, that's really nice. I really like that. So you keep coming back to bridge, you know, bridge pose. How does, you know, it's nice to sit in Sheila as well. The feet look fantastically planted. It's nice to keep coming back to something like that and just seeing perhaps how it changes when we intersperse it with other movements. Right. If you're doing a floor twist, it's probably time to just make sure you're going on to the second side. Yes, because it'd be nice to settle down, a little bit of quiet breathing. So if anyone would like a blanket, who's, yeah, Sarah, blanket, the window shut.
Yeah.
Blanket. Yeah, blanket and windows open. Louis, do you want your jacket? Yeah. Anyone else? Donna, would you like a blanket? Tracy, are you okay? So yes, if you're in your own home, making sure you're warm. Yeah, making sure you're warm, settling yourself down. We're going to finish with a bit of lying down. Yeah, finish with a little bit of lying down and breathing, just settling. So you can lie however you're most comfortable, knees bent, legs long. And you can have your hands on your belly or your arms on the floor beside you. You'll know how to do this for me. And you could start by gathering your attention into the breath. So we've, at various points throughout this class, we've come back to feeling the flow of our breath within us. Usually when we're in something sort of quiet place. So for 2 or 3 cycles of breath, just gather your attention into breathing. And that sense of that constant flow. So the breath is always changing, but at the same time, it's always constant. That's why I think it makes such a helpful focus for our awareness. And then from your breath, you could take your awareness into the front of your body. And allow the front of your body to soften. So perhaps imagine your face softening, the skin of the cheeks and the forehead, particularly that point in between the eyebrows. The jaw relaxed, lips relaxed, tongue quiet in the mouth. Down through the front of the throat, the front of the chest, the belly, all of this softening, responding to the breathing. And on down through the fronts of the legs, the tops of the feet. And then if you take your attention to the back of your body, you can be aware of the points of contact of the back of your body on the ground. So the back of the head, the back of the shoulders. As some of the vertebrae touch the ground, some don't. Some of the rib cage touches the ground, some doesn't. Perhaps a bit of space around your lower back, depending how you're lying, between your lower back and the floor. And down to the back of your pelvis, where the pelvis settles on the ground. Notice how the right side rests and how the left side rests. And down through the legs, if your legs are long, down to the back of the heels on the ground. Or if your knees are bent down to the full footprints on the ground. You can also feel the air on our skin and perhaps notice sounds around us. I'm going to add the sound of the singing bowl into the rest of the sound. So thank you everyone. You don't need to leap up unless you need to go somewhere. People here look like they're not going anywhere. Thank you. Bye.